everybody coming on.
Hello, hello. Welcome.
We've got quite a few people joining us today.
It's exciting. Glad folks are taking time to do this. It's one of the first steps of self-care. Making time for it. Can you hear the bells in the distance?
Yes.
And the birds. One of my forms of self-care is being outside right now. So it's beautiful out. In East Tennessee, we've got blue skies. And I have apple and cherry trees in front of me that are blossoming, so that's really nice. How are we doing on numbers of folks joining, Christina?
We've got 38 with us.
It's wonderful. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. We'll give everyone just another minute to join, and then we will get started. I'm a little nervous to lead this, so I'm using my mindfulness skills to mindfully notice the apple blossoms in front of me. They're very pretty. They're light pink, and the sky's really blue, so there's this beautiful blue sky behind the light pink cherry blossoms. And I hear birds chirping, and I hear somebody working on their lawn, and a car driving by. I feel like you will all get to experience the sounds of nature and neighborhood with me as I sit on my front porch today. What do you think, Christina?
We've got 40 joining.
Wonderful. I know we had quite a few more registered, but I also know it's very busy and unpredictable times right now.
Yes.
So I think I'm going to get us started, and folks can join, and we're recording so folks can watch and catch up. All right, welcome everybody. I'm super excited to have you. I'll introduce myself in a moment, but I just wanted to acknowledge where we're at, which is the first inaugural webinar brought to you by Cherish Mom and the Appalachian Perinatal Mental Health Alliance called Survival Mode Parenting in the Time of COVID. And today is our first one, week one, and we're talking about self-care, really self-care as parents, but anybody who is a human, I think, can benefit from this conversation around self-care and how to do self-care in the time of COVID, especially in the context of having kids and taking care of kids. So welcome, we're so glad you're here. We're going to explain how this whole webinar thing works. So hang with us as we do introductions and explain the technology. All right, so who we are, I'm Dr. Diana Moreland. I'm a clinical psychologist. I work in East Tennessee State University's Department of Psychology, and I'm also one of the co-founders and president of the Appalachian Perinatal Mental Health Alliance, which is a chapter underneath, or a branch underneath Postpartum Support International, Tennessee. And the Appalachian Perinatal Mental Health Alliance, is such a mouthful, was a nonprofit co-founded with me and Christina, who you see on your screen, and then another colleague, Matthew Tolliver, really in response to Christina seeing a need in our community for services for mamas experiencing mental health difficulties. And so our main goals are to raise awareness about mental health during pregnancy and postpartum, to help decrease the stigma around it, and then to increase our community's capacity to meet the needs of families impacted by perinatal mental health. So that's who I am, and that's who we are at the Alliance. And I'll let Christina introduce herself and mention and tell you a little bit about Cherished Mom.
Yes, so I am Christina Delaney. I'm a registered nurse and certified in perinatal mental health, and I'm another co-founder of the Alliance, which we call for short because it is a mouthful, like Diana said. And I'm also the founder of Cherished Mom, and we are dedicated to educating and supporting moms, families, and the communities surrounding perinatal mental health. And I'm so excited to have these webinar series because especially right now, we think they're so important as more moms and families and dads and caregivers are at home in this time. So, and that's more about us and what we do. So I'm going to mute myself because Diana is the speaker and my screen is going to go black. So I'm going to kind of support Diana. So if y'all have questions, I think, are you going to explain?
I'll explain all that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Christina.
So I'll let her take over.
Thank you, Christina. All right. So let's do a really quick how to with the technology of the webinar. There's a box that you should see that is called the Q&A box, questions and answers. And if you have a question as we go, please type it in the box, and Christina's going to keep an eye on that and help make sure I am seeing and recognizing your questions and responding to them as we go. And we really want this to be interactive. I think it'll be a lot more fun, and you all are the experts on yourselves and your families and your lives. So please participate, ask questions, respond with comments, raise your hands. So that's the next one. There's an option where you can raise your hand virtually, and that allows Christina to unmute you so you can talk. Please don't be afraid to talk. It's going to be much more fun if other people are talking and it's not just me talking for an hour. So that's how you can talk. It allows her to unmute you. So questions go in the Q&A box. Raise your hand if you want to talk, and you'll get unmuted and you can speak. And then just general comments. I'm going to ask a lot of questions in terms of how things are for you, and the way you can respond to that is to use the chat box. And so we encourage you to choose the option that says that the chats that you're saying go to all panelists and attendees. That allows everyone to see. There's an option where you can just send it to Christina and I, and then no one else will see except us. And then if we get into this and you are like, I can't keep track of how I'm supposed to raise my hand or where I'm supposed to put a question or a comment, don't worry about it. Just put it somewhere. Push a bunch of buttons until you can participate, because at the end of the day, we don't really care how you participate. We just want you to participate. So no worries if you get it wrong. Engage however you can. This is being recorded so that we can share it with families who aren't able to join us live. Okay. Christina, any questions so far that are any technology questions or anything I missed?
No, ma'am, not so far.
All right. Our rules for the webinar: just be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and please participate. And that's it. Pretty straightforward. All right, here we go. So I am a clinical psychologist, and I am all about practicing what I preach, even though I'm not always good at it. And the first thing I know is that it helps me when I'm transitioning from one thing to the next to stop and take a deep breath. And right now I'm transitioning from work and being a mama into this webinar. And so it's going to help me to take a deep breath. I hope it helps you. So I'm going to guide us through a brief deep breathing exercise. And I invite you to join me if you're able. So for this, I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable. If not, just have a soft gaze gently at something in front of you. And we're just gonna practice breathing in through our nose and out through our mouths. And when you breathe in through your nose, try to fill that abdomen up with air, really filling that stomach up with air like you're filling up a balloon. And then as you exhale, deflating that balloon, pushing all of the air out of your stomach. And I'm going to count breaths for us. So we're going to do what's called a triangle breath, where we breathe in for 3, hold for 3, and exhale for 3. If that pace doesn't feel comfortable to you, please breathe however feels relaxing to you. This is all about what you need. All right, here we go. So we're going to take a slow breath in through our nose for 1, 2, 3. Hold 1, 2, 3, and exhale 1, 2, 3. In 1, 2, 3. Hold 1, 2, 3, and exhale 1, 2, 3. One more. Slowly breathe it in. Hold and exhale. Maybe sigh it out like, just let it go. All right, open those eyes, come back. Welcome back. So I'm a mama, here are the boys. And I apologize, y'all. I should have had a disclaimer at the beginning that I am gonna show way too many baby pictures. I am a mama of 11-month-old identical twin boys. We've got Gunner on the left in a little green diaper and Everett on the right in a little blue diaper. And part of my passion for parental self-care comes from needing it and needing to work on it. And so by getting to engage with you all and guide this webinar, it helps me stay grounded and remember what this is all about and why it's so important to take care of ourselves as we take care of others. And others can be anyone. It can be pets, it can be partners, it can be parents, it can be kids. We are all caregivers in one way or another. And so we've got to take care of ourselves first. So just wanted to introduce you to the boys. So something that really helps me as I think about the big picture of parental self-care is that we often get focused on what we're doing and the day-to-day and the to-do list and are we doing it good enough? And there's a quote from an infant mental health specialist, Jury Paul, that says, how we are is just as important as what we do. And that helps me zoom out and see the big picture, that it's not just what I do, but it's how I am. And if I can let go of the to-do list and the little things and zoom out and focus more on how I am, it helps set me up to feel more effective as a mama, but also in the other roles that I have as a professional, as a daughter, as a sister, as a wife, etc. And how we are in caregiving, the ways I really hope that by the end of the day we all work on being more of, is that we're calm, we're curious, and we're compassionate. And we really need to be able to do this with ourselves before we can do it with others. So today is all about how do we take care of ourselves, but ultimately it is not a selfish endeavor to think about and practice and spend time with self-care. It's really doing that so that we are better able to stay calm, curious, and compassionate towards others. And so that's my why we do it, the why behind the what. All right, I'm gonna get a little clinical psychologist nerdy on you for a second. And I promise we've got some engaging discussion stuff coming up. So hang with me as I get a little brain science-y. And look at this picture here. It comes from a book by Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson. I love Dan Siegel's work. He's a neurologist, and he writes great books about brain development and parenting. So if you haven't read his books, I highly recommend them. But this picture shows us how the brain develops, and it uses a house metaphor, such that the brain develops from the bottom up, just like we would build a house from the foundation before we build the upstairs. And the downstairs brain is the part of our brain that we all have. This is the part of our brain that helps us survive. It's the part of the brain that babies are born with. It's our fight or flight system, really that alarm system. It helps us regulate things like breathing and appetite and sleep. And then as we grow up and as we have positive experiences, we build that staircase that connects our downstairs brain to our upstairs brain. And the upstairs brain is the part of our brain that lets us do all the adult things we hope to do and are expected to do, such as thinking before we act or speak, planning ahead. Being empathic is an upstairs brain activity, being able to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes and take their perspective, controlling our body, being able to learn. All of those things are upstairs brain activities. And so one way that I've found really helpful to think about this and teach about this and talk to kids about this and talk to parents about this is using this flip your lid metaphor that comes from Dan Siegel. I didn't invent this. And this is the idea that, join me, make a fist, if you will, please, where you've got your thumb in the middle and you've got your fingers on top. And this is our brains. And here, our little thumb is our downstairs brain. This is where big feelings are housed. This is our limbic system for people who are interested in the anatomy of the brain, where our amygdala is. And this is where we have our fight or flight. This is where if we feel fear, we know to run away from the lion that's in the room. This is something we all have, even animals have this. And then as we grow up and develop, our upstairs brain, bring those fingers down over your thumb, starts to join and grow. And the upstairs brain, this is our prefrontal cortex for those who are curious. This is the part of our brain that allows us to plan ahead, inhibit our impulses, think before we act, and be empathic. Another way to think of this, and we'll see these words later on, is that this is emotion mind when we are thinking and viewing the world through our big emotions, and this is wise mind when we're able to hold reason and logic and emotions and balance all of them. And when we feel big emotions like fear, anger, anxiety, etc., we flip our lids. So my fingers just lifted off my thumb and that downstairs brain is screaming at me. So for little kids, this happens all the time because this part of their brain, the upstairs brain, is not fully developed. And even for adults, this happens when we feel big, strong emotions like fear that we're in a pandemic and we don't know what's coming or what to expect, and everything is different and there's so much uncertainty. So this is something we all experience. And today we're really going to work on how do we know where we're at in this flipping of the lid versus not. Are we in emotion mind? Are we in wise mind? How do we know where our kids are at? And how do we calm ourselves so we can calm our kids? Or just calm ourselves so we can calm ourselves. That's a worthy endeavor in and of itself. I forget what comes next. Okay, the three minds. So I mentioned these words: rational mind, emotional mind, and wise mind. If you're curious, this comes from a therapy called dialectical behavior therapy, but it's a framework I find to be very helpful for all of us. With rational mind being kind of the logic mind, what makes sense. This is when we make decisions based on logic and past events without any emotion integrated in. Computers are always in rational mind. Computers make rational decisions that don't factor in emotions and just factor in facts. There's pros and cons of being in rational mind. Emotional mind, this is what feels good. This is when we are making decisions through the lens of our emotions, and it's often very reactive. So for example, when I'm angry and I scream at somebody, I am in emotion mind. Wise mind is the balanced mind. So if this is emotion mind, I've just flipped my lid and I've got my thumb there, my amygdala and limbic system. That's emotion mind. Wise mind is when we have our prefrontal cortex on and we are integrating feeling and thinking. We're integrating emotions and logic. It's both. It's where we're able to be mindful and thoughtful and reflective rather than reactive. Now, a lot of conflict in parent-child relationships, or really any relationships, happen when we've got somebody who flips their lid. So you think about a toddler, classic toddler in the grocery store, and they are hungry and they are tired and they want the candy bar and you tell them no, and they flip their lid and they're feeling angry and tired and sad and they're throwing a tantrum. And a lot of us come at that with rational mind, and rational mind is here. See, my fingers are not connected to my thumb. My rational thinking mind is not connected to my feeling mind. And we come at it with logic and we say things like, now, Everett, remember, we talked about this. You were going to be good at the grocery store and you weren't going to throw a tantrum. And if you were good, then 3 hours from now, you'll get dessert after dinner. And we're like trying to appeal logically to a toddler who is in emotion mind, and they cannot hear it, and it just makes them scream louder, and it doesn't work. That's because when a kiddo, or when any of us are in emotion mind, we need wise mind to soothe us. We need somebody bigger, stronger, wiser, kinder to help us regulate. And sometimes that's a parent to a child, but for us as adults, sometimes we can do that ourselves, and sometimes we need somebody to help us. And then when we're in wise mind, we can come and help calm them and soothe that. And then eventually they get here, and then we can have that conversation that engages the logical part of their mind. But when they're in the big feelings, that is not the time to use logic. Emotion mind cannot hear rational mind. We've got to soothe and regulate the emotions before we can do wise mind to wise mind conversations. All right, let's engage you all. Well, first, I'm wondering if anyone has any questions about that metaphor for brain development or flipping our lids or kind of how we feel emotions. So I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see what's happening. All right, any questions about upstairs, downstairs brain, flipping your lid, wise mind, emotion mind? I'm not seeing any. Okay, so then I'm gonna ask you all to participate now. And you can do this as a reminder. You can raise your hand and get unmuted and speak with me, which would be awesome. Or you can answer things in the chat box. And so the question is, how do you know when you flip your lid? How do you know when you're in emotion mind? What do you notice in your body? What do you notice? What does your face do? What does your voice do? What does your body language do? Where do your thoughts go? What do you actually do? What is your behavior? And what happens in your relationships? How do you treat others? So this is a participation moment. How do you know when you flip your lid? What does that look like for you?
We have someone raising their hand, Bonnie Whitfield, so I'm going to allow her to talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie.
You're unmuted, Bonnie.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, Diana, it's actually Chelsea. I'm here with Bonnie.
Hey, Chelsea. Thanks for being here and for talking.
My pleasure. So for me, I can feel it when my lid starts to flip. It's more of like an inside feeling. I can feel my heart rate elevating.
Yeah.
It's just because recently, you know, being pregnant, I'm a bit more in tune with my body, but I can definitely feel it now more than I noticed it before.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chelsea. That makes a lot of sense, and I bet you're not alone in noticing that heart rate. So thank you for sharing.
And we have a lot of conversation in the chat box going on. I want to go off. My voice gets loud. I pull away from people. Thank you for sharing all of these, Emily and Maria and Diana. I do not want to interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
My head starts to hurt and I feel uncomfortable. Delayed thought process, flushed face and heart palpitations. Sometimes I shut down and have to come back to that scenario at a later time.
Mm-hmm.
I overreact and blame and get a headache. I get easily irritated and have an increased heart rate and get tired. I like to be by myself and have to process everything. And like Chelsea, I have a heart rate increase. And another
Awesome.
one, when I flip my lid, I sweat and raise my voice, cross my arms to protect myself and shut other people off.
Yes. Yeah.
So gosh, so many of you. Thank you for
So many.
interacting with us.
Thank you everybody for sharing the ways that you notice. I think one theme I'm hearing is that shut other people off, that like I don't want to interact with people, and it's because it's the upstairs part of our brain that engages us with empathy and curiosity. And so if we flipped our lids, it's really hard to feel motivated to engage and be calm and curious. And so that's a very normal thing. And especially in this time.
Someone else said eat lots of chocolate.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Amen.
Eat lots of chocolate.
Yes, a good indication. What about wise mind? How do you all know when you're in wise mind? How do you feel it in your body? What does your face do, your voice, your behavior, your relationships? What is that like for you? And Christina, I'm watching the chat box now too. I found a way to do that. So thank you for helping, but I wanted you to know I can see it. So wise mind, how do you all know? How does that feel in your body or mind or relationships? This one's a little bit harder, I think. Don't feel pressure to make a quick decision, can really process. Yeah, able to think rationally, calm voice, more able to articulate my thoughts, can listen clearly, think more clearly. Yeah. Feel at peace, yes, in whatever domain, more joyful and peppy, proceed calmly, noticing emotions and ration, feel peaceful and more myself, more logical and balanced, thoughts are more clear. Thank you all so much for these. So, okay, I feel like I've got your buy-in. This is why we need self-care, because we need wise mind. We need to find wise mind to survive this crazy time of COVID, and just in general, adulting, taking care of others is hard on a good day. And then you add a pandemic, and I don't know, I don't have words for how the pandemic changes everything. So a few things. These are not my words. This next slide. This is coming from Brene Brown. I am channeling Brene Brown. She has a beautiful podcast called Unlocking Us. I highly recommend you listen to her. And I want to give her credit for this notion that I'm about to share. And that is just our big frame, that when we think about self-care in the time of COVID, it's so important to name what's going on first and foremost. Brene uses this notion of FFTs, and I'm going to let you listen to the podcast to learn what that is. I'm just going to say, in this time of COVID, name the pandemic. Like, we are in a global crisis. Because I think it can be easy to forget that, and then we're extra hard on ourselves or others because we forget that this is a time where everything is turned upside down, nothing is normal, and it's just a time of uncertainty and change, and so I think it's really important to name that, and then normalize it. Normalize the feelings that come from being in a global pandemic. So that might be fear, anxiety, uncertainty, disappointment at things that we thought were going to happen and now aren't going to happen, loss related to COVID, frustration. We understandably are all going to be in our downstairs brains a little bit more in this pandemic time, as we try to figure out the new normal in a world that isn't normal. And so normalize all feelings are okay. And it is okay to feel anxious. It is okay to feel sad that you're not getting to do the things you want to do. It is okay to feel frustrated that things aren't working out how you hoped. Normalize it. And then lower the bar. Lower your expectations for yourself, lower your expectations for others. We're in a pandemic. Like I keep forgetting this, and then I like go and I'm trying to work and trying to take care of the babies, and I'm like, why am I so stressed? And then it's like, oh yeah, because we're all quarantined and we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and people we love are sick or at risk of getting sick, and people are losing jobs, and nothing feels stable or secure. And we just have to remember that context and normalize the feelings that come up, and then lower our expectations for ourselves. And I'm seeing lots of participation on the chat, so thank you. I'm glad those of you who've heard of Brene Brown and listened to her. And Maria, thanks for sharing that it's so hard to lower the bar. Amen. It's so hard for me too. I forget all the time. You've got 6 kids, and routine is so important. And bless you for being at home with 6 kids right now. Routine is crucial. All right, guys, getting real. This is an example of me lowering the bar. So here I am doing a Zoom video class with grad students while breastfeeding both babies, and being in bed because it was the quietest place in my house during some renovations that are happening during the quarantine, because my significant other has decided that the quarantine is the right time to tear apart the house. I love him, but I don't know, it's a little stressful. So I am trying to practice this by recognizing like nothing's normal. I'm just doing the best I can as a mom to take care of the boys and take care of my work responsibilities. And I wasn't able to give the boys my full attention in this moment. And I wasn't able to give my class my full attention in this moment. But this is just the moment that had to be because of how things are right now. And so this was me lowering the bar. What are some ways that you all are trying to lower the bar for yourselves as you navigate this new normal life in COVID and quarantine? It sounds like people are telling you to lower the bar, and it's so hard. Yeah, it is so hard. I'm wondering if anybody is finding ways to lower the bar for themselves, or ways that they wish they could lower the bar, maybe. The house doesn't have to be spotless. Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, so true. Adjusting the schedule, yes, being flexible with the schedule, really important. Feeling like I don't have to have everything done all at once. Between working at home, normal housework, having a new baby, it doesn't have to be done all at once. Amen, Leslie. It's so important to continue to remind yourself of that. Doing 30-minute sessions with the client instead of 45 is okay. Yes, yeah. Changing our expectations that we put on ourselves. Nightgown and no makeup is okay. Yes, it is. Totally is. I'm wearing slippers right now and they're very comfortable. Adjusting the schedule. Not posting to your Google Classroom every day. Yes. Yep. Definitely. Lots of great ideas. Thank you all for sharing how you're lowering the bar. Feel free to keep posting those. A bit of kiddo screen time is okay. Bonnie, thank you. I've been meaning to say this. As a child psychologist, I fully endorse everyone letting their children watch screens right now. While you're doing what you have to do to survive, it's okay to let them play on a tablet or watch TV if that's what you need to take care of yourself. Yeah, rewarding yourself and not punishing yourself, absolutely. All right, let's talk about the shoulds, sleeping in. Yeah, okay, the shoulds. So the shoulds are this thing we all do in our minds where we talk to ourselves and we say, you should be doing this. So I'll tell you my inner narrative. And if you see the picture here, I like to envision my shoulds as the green Mucinex guy. I don't know, it's just kind of always the physical form the shoulds have taken in my mind. And he's just kind of like on my shoulder talking to me like, you should be working on that research paper. You should be washing the dishes. You should be playing with your children. You should be calling your grandma. You should be making cookies for all the neighbors. You should be like the shoulds. The shoulds are not helpful ever, but especially now. And so it's really important for us to notice our shoulds. I think it's really helpful to envision them externally, like I do with this green Mucinex guy, and then talk back to the shoulds. And you can envision like little devil and angel in your shoulder, battling it out, or whatever feels good to you. I've got the Mucinex guy, and then I've got like wise Buddha on the other shoulder, calmly telling me it's okay, and that I am doing the best that I can. So recognizing the shoulds is an important part of parental self-care. Here's a picture of Everett, and he is covered in mud, and he has a mouthful of mud because I was not paying as close attention to him as I should have, and was working on gardening and something, and he got into the mud bowl. And so my first thought, of course, was like, I should have been watching him more closely. And then I had this moment of, you know what? He's safe. I have him in a safe place, and it's just mud. He just ate a little dirt. And look how happy he is. He is so happy. So rather than beating myself up and having thoughts like, I'm a bad mom, I'm not giving him enough attention, I need to stop multitasking, noticing I'm having those thoughts, and then taking a breath and remembering that I'm doing the best that I can and trying to be mindful in the moment and kind to myself. And that it's okay. It's okay if I wasn't watching him for 10 seconds and during that time he crawled over, got fully covered in mud, and ate a little. And thank you all for who are encouraging me right now in the chat box that it's okay that he ate mud. I appreciate that. Okay, here's the Wise Mind graphic again, remembering that all of this self-care stuff is in the vein of being able to find and stay in wise mind as caregivers. One way that we can do that is through this acronym of RAIN. And this is just a way to mindfully notice what's going on inside us. I think we're so busy day to day, especially if you're taking care of little ones, where we never stop to really notice how we are. But it's hard to be in wise mind if we're not noticing that we're out of it. Like, we got to notice before we can find wise mind. So RAIN is just an acronym that helps us recognize what's going on, allow the experience to be there just as it is, investigate it with kindness, and then allow natural awareness that comes from not identifying with the experience. And it's okay if not all of these steps make sense. Really, the most important thing is just to notice what you're feeling, accept what you're feeling, pay attention. You are worthy of slowing down and noticing and checking in with yourselves. And here's a picture. I warned you guys about the baby pictures of me in the literal rain. But this was on a day where I was having a hard time mentally. It's a rainy day, which I tend to get more depressed on rainy days and cloudy days. It's a common thing for a lot of folks. And I had been working all day. My mom is here helping with the boys, which is beautiful, but then I get in these like mom guilt shoulds of like, I should be helping more. So I was just having kind of a day where I was in a grumpy mood because work wasn't feeling good. I was stressed. It was raining. I felt guilty for not playing with the babies more. And then I noticed that I realized what I was feeling. I investigated curiously, kind of internally, what I was feeling and why I was feeling that way. And then really just tried to allow the feeling to be there without changing it. And then worked to do what I needed to do to feel a little bit better. And for me, that was just to strap the babies on and go outside and recognize that we can be in nature and have a pleasant time together, even when the weather isn't bad or is bad. So that's my little anecdote about the rain. The other thing that I think, in addition to kind of being mindful of our own emotions, noticing where we're at, recognizing that some self-care activities like taking a bath, reading a book, having a peaceful cup of tea, going for a run. Some activities are really hard to do when you've got kids because the kids demand your attention. So I wanted today to be intentional about not giving you guys just a long list of things you could or should be doing for self-care, but rather recognizing that one of the barriers to self-care as parents is it's really hard to find time for ourselves. And then I noticed last night, actually kind of going on a walk with my significant other, that after the boys go to bed, we have this time, bedtime to bedtime, from their bedtime till our bedtime. And that's kid-free time. And that when I'm very intentional with that time, I get recharged. It's very fulfilling. And when I'm not intentional with that time and I just kind of do chores, mindlessly scroll on social media, watch mindless TV, I don't feel restored by the end of the day. I'm seeing somebody is usually exhausted by their bedtime. That's also okay, because it might be that they go to bed and that what you really need is to go to bed, and that is okay. That's an important thing to notice and honor. But one way to help us think about how to make that time, and it doesn't have to be bedtime to bedtime. It could be nap time. It could be time in the morning when you're up and they're not. It could be time when you have childcare and you're able to step away. It's really when you have time away from the kids, how to make it nutrient rich. Rich being an acronym for regulating. So something that helps you find wise mind, something that helps regulate your emotions. Intentional, being really intentional with that time. Like I said, not just letting ourselves fall into old habits or routines, but being intentional to use that time. Something that's calming to you, and recognizing that's what's calming to one person may not be calming to another. I love puzzles. They stress my partner out. That's okay. They're calming to me, and that's what I need to know. And then honest. Being honest with ourselves about what we really need and not getting trapped in the shoulds of, oh, I think I should take a bath because everyone tells me self-care is taking bubble baths. And then you get in the bubble bath and you're just stressed out the whole time. Be honest with yourself and recognize that bubble baths may not be your form of self-care, and that is okay. So being honest with what we need and then giving ourselves permission to do what we need to take care of ourselves. All right, nutrient-rich bedtime to bedtime. Do something regulating, intentional, calming, and honest. What all have you found? And again, this is just a time when you have time to yourself. I know it's precious, but how have you found ways to be intentional with that time to help you recharge? What works for you? See, Andrea, I have worship time routine, and then I read my Bible and pray. Quiet place to sing and read my Bible. Exercising, walking, silence, going out on the back porch. Yes, that is crucial. Just some quiet time. Playing the piano, cocktail with my husband and catching up on the day. Devotion and listen to soft music. Thank you all for sharing. Stop texting all my friends and family too. Yeah, sometimes disengaging from technology is so crucial. Thank you all for sharing some of those. Walking around. All right, we're gonna do an activity. I'm gonna try to get a quick time check because I can't see the time. Christina, can you tell me what time it is?
It's 12:45.
Awesome. Okay, we are going to wrap up with an actual practice. Those of you who know me or work with me professionally may have done this before. Those of you who don't, I thank you in advance for trying something new with me. It's a guided imagery meditation, which means we're going to picture something in our minds and kind of go on a mental trip together. So I appreciate you giving it a go. So for this, I encourage you all to get comfortable wherever you're at. If you can be distraction-free, aka kid-free, that's awesome. If not, know that we're recording this and you can come back and do it another time when you have a quiet moment. Get comfortable, close those eyes if that feels comfortable, If it doesn't feel comfortable to close your eyes, just gaze gently at something in front of you. And we'll start just by taking a deep breath, slow in through the nose, slow out through the mouth. And now I invite you to picture in your mind a beautiful cup. This can be any kind of cup. It can be a mason jar, a teacup, a wine glass, a mug. Just picture a beautiful cup. And now I invite you to think about a toxic liquid, something that's gross and disgusting. I always picture sludge. It could be a drink you don't like. Picture a toxic liquid. And imagine your cup filling up with that toxic liquid. This toxic liquid represents the relationships and the activities and the behaviors that stress us out, that drain us, that leave us feeling stressed, anxious, frustrated, that take more than they give. Bring to mind any relationships that feel toxic, that make you feel bad about yourself, or activities that do this for you. For me, sometimes it's just going too deep on social media or reading the news for too long or watching a TV show that has a lot of violence in it leaves me feeling kind of drained and icky. So think about the relationships and the activities that bring you stress or frustration. And as you think about those relationships and activities, notice that your cup is getting fuller and fuller with the toxic liquid, and it starts to overflow. Think about what happens to your relationships and the people around you and to yourself when your cup is overflowing with the toxic. How does it impact you and your loved ones? Now take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, picture yourself emptying and cleaning out that cup. Throw away the toxic liquid. You have a clean cup now in your hands. And now I invite you to think of a nourishing liquid, something delicious, nourishing, exciting. Could be your favorite drink, could be water. And as you think about this liquid and picture it filling up your cup, I invite you to think about the relationships and activities that nourish you, that energize you, that leave you feeling happy, content, relaxed, fulfilled. Picture those relationships and activities. And notice what happens when your cup starts to overflow. How does it impact you and your loved ones when your cup is overflowing with this nourishing liquid? All right, deep breath in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Empty that cup again. And just notice an empty cup. And as you look at your cup, you notice that there's only so much space in your cup. So we have a few options now that we know this. One option is to be intentional about protecting the toxic stuff from getting in the first place. This means setting boundaries around toxic relationships, or decreasing activities or habits or behaviors that drain us or leave us feeling negative. Try to picture what it would be like for you to protect your cup a little bit. What's a boundary you could set, or a behavior you could cut back on? Our next option is to increase the good stuff, is to be intentional about filling our cup with that nourishing liquid. increasing our connection to the relationships that nourish us and engaging in the activities that nourish us. So picture yourself doing that. What's one thing that you could do to increase the nourishing liquid, either through your relationships or your activities? And finally, we notice that with this limited space in our cup, sometimes it's inevitable that the toxic is going to get in. We have to do things we don't want to. Some stress is inevitable, especially in today's current situation. And we really need to work on being mindful and noticing when our cup is starting to fill up with the toxic. How will we notice? What will those clues be in our body, in our minds, in our behavior, in our relationships, that our cup is starting to get a little too full with the toxic, and we need to be intentional about emptying it out a little bit to make room for the good? So how will you know when it's time to do that? How will you know when you are starting to slip into emotion mind because you're getting too full of the bad stuff? And then what will you do to empty out the cup a little to make space for the good? Now we'll gently start to mentally say goodbye to this cup, knowing that it lives within us and we can return to check in on it anytime we need. We'll start to get regrounded in our bodies by first just noticing points of contact between your body and the ground or the furniture. Noticing the feel of your breath as you slowly breathe in and slowly breathe out. And then when you're ready, gently opening your eyes and coming back to this space. Welcome back. I'm curious what came up for you all in that guided exercise in terms of what you noticed about the things that maybe feel toxic or draining and the things that feel nourishing to you. I'd love to hear some of the things, and you can share either or both. Yeah, Mary, noticing that right now the toxic things are easier to think of than the positive things. I appreciate you sharing that. I bet you're not alone in that. There's a lot of toxic stuff right now. It's important to notice and normalize. Andrea, realizing the boundary line has to be very clear, I think, for the negative, and then trying to allow your cup to flow over with the positive, setting appropriate boundaries to not keep the negative surrounding me. Yeah. Oh, very little for the negative. Yeah, I agree. Yep, setting those boundaries. I think boundaries are crucial right now, more than ever. Saying no to the things that drain us. If there was ever a time to set a boundary, I can't imagine a better time than a pandemic. Like, say no to work things that you really don't want to do. If you can, say no. We're obviously all saying no to social engagements because we can't leave our houses. Yes, our best yes is sometimes a no, and that is okay. It's so true. Thank you, Andrea. All right. Christina, I'd love a time update. I know we're reaching the end.
It's 12:54.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so we're going to wrap things up. This image here is just to remind us that in order to hold others, we need to be held ourselves, and we can be held in relationships, but also we can take care of ourselves and create that holding environment through engaging in self-care. We've been talking a lot about how to take care of ourselves when we're able to kind of step away from kids, but I also wanted to briefly acknowledge that we can't always step away from kids, and that's okay. Remember to kind of name it, normalize it, lower the bar with kids. So like if you're feeling frustrated and stressed, it's okay to feel that way. It's normal to feel that way, and lower the bar. And then there's this strategy that I've been finding really helpful, and I will be the first to admit that I am not good at it, but I'm working on it, of mindfully playing with my kiddos as a way to practice self-care while they're with me. Because again, we can't always just get away and have quiet time. So with mindfully playing, this is the idea of just choosing, being intentional to be present with our kids, to get on their level, to see the world through their eyes, to be present, to be non-judgmental with ourselves first and foremost, and then with our kids. So again, not judging myself if I'm playing with them and I'm having the thought, I should be responding to that email, or I should be doing the dishes, noticing the shoulds and talking back to them without judging myself for having the shoulds. Noticing the distractions, gosh, cell phones. I mean, I think that's our biggest distraction right now is cell phones and all that's on them. Noticing the things that distract us and choosing to refocus our attention and be present with kids. And viewing it as a process and not a practice. So, I'm sorry, a process and a practice. So the process being the effort that it takes to be mindful, to be focused on one thing. Our brains are really good at multitasking and thinking about 1,000 things at once. And it's natural, that's not a word, but it's not natural for our brains to be fully present in the moment unless we try. And it's like exercising a muscle. If you've never done it, it's extra hard in the beginning. And so when we start to practice mindfulness, it's really hard to not be distracted and to focus. So I encourage you to start in small doses. Maybe try 3 minutes, 5 minutes of mindfully playing. And the practice is noticing the distractions and bringing your mind back to the play. And be patient with yourself in this. So that's one way to practice self-care with kiddos present. Kids are a beautiful reminder of how to live mindfully, because young kids live in the present moment. They are not worried about the past. They are not worried about the future. They are mindfully playing. So when we can join with them, that can be another way to just help give ourselves a moment of peace. All right, as we wrap up, I want to remind you that how we are is just as important as what we do. The importance of being calm, curious, and compassionate, first with ourselves and then with others. And with these final few minutes, I really love to open it up to a discussion of what you all have found helpful. So what is working for you in this time of COVID, in your home, where I'm guessing there are people, you know, there's kids, there's dogs, there's family members. What is working for you to take care of yourselves? What's getting in the way of self-care? And any other thoughts or reactions or questions you're having. So please raise your hand, talk to me, comment in the box. Let's make these last few minutes a conversation. So I'm seeing some chats. Mindfully playing is good. We've been doing gym class on lunch break. Completely walking away from work. Gosh, yes, the importance of totally walking away from computers and phones right now is so important. Yolanda finds help through keeping her faith that God is still in control. Emily says advocate for yourself, your family, friends, and at work. Yep, so being an advocate. Other ways that you all are practicing self-care during this time, challenges you've encountered in trying to practice self-care, words of wisdom, questions. The white clouds are calming for me. They're calming for me too. That's why I put them there as my treat at the end. Sandy drives on her job, is now working from home. Oh, any other suggestions on things to do? Okay. Things to do on the drive. Being more comfortable with my own boundaries, feeling it's okay to choose to not be accessible. Intentionally making time for myself daily. Dancing, I love dancing. Lots of people finding comfort in their faith right now. FaceTime calls with friends. Yeah, I love dancing. Some people know this about me. I like to make up dances or just put on music videos and dance. And just being silly can be a form of self-care. Just letting ourselves play and be silly can be really important in this time that feels so serious and heavy. Making a playlist that has music that feels comforting to you and then playing it anytime you need can be one thing. Other folks, ways that you are doing self-care or things that get in the way or feel hard about it. Oh, camping. Being in nature, I think, is one way that we can really be reminded that even when things feel really big and out of control, that there's something calming and stable about nature. So finding time in nature, if that feels relaxing to you. All right, everybody. We're all different. So remember, you are worthy of self-care. It's okay to not be okay right now. And the more you're able to talk back to those shoulds, lower the bar, and normalize this experience, the more you'll be able to find moments where you can be in wise mind and can create a calm and holding and regulating space for your loved ones. Please join us next week. Next week's webinar, we'll be talking about perinatal mental health during this time of COVID. And we welcome your feedback too of other webinars you'd like to see us do. So thank you for joining our first webinar. I really strongly hope you all find ways to practice self-care regularly. You deserve it, you are worthy of it. And I hope you stay well. Take care. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for all the kind words, everybody.